I had no idea how strong cannabis withdrawal symptoms can be. So that was a thing that a client of mine ended up saying prior to our session. They had tried many times to quit, and when they did, a lot of the withdrawal symptoms that they experienced were pretty severe. And one of those symptoms was an inability to sleep. They had some insomnia issues that they were really bothered by. And the only way that they seemed to be able to fall back asleep or get through that little window of time where they couldn't sleep was to pick back up the marijuana and smoke. When you lose enough sleep, it starts to affect your willpower. It actually really can psychologically affect you. There's such a thing as called sleep deprivation, and it has a lot of negative side effects to your system overall. So one of the cool things that I explained to them is, when you get into a session with me as a hypnotist, the difference is that you're leaving my session completely understanding that this is no longer a problem for you. You're not done with the session until we reach that point. And oftentimes at the end of a session, my clients will look back at the beginning of the session and they just can't even relate to where they thought that their marijuana consumption was even remotely a good idea. And one of the things that I do towards the end of the session is I'll really press to them, okay, well, what happens if you go back around those family members that you were telling me you struggled with at the next family gathering? And you can go smoke outside. What are you going to do if they're just really triggering you left and right and it's just the conversation sucks? They're getting back into those politics, the things you just don't want to have another huge debate with them on. And, are you going to go back out and smoke? And prior, they would have had a completely different answer, because their answer prior to that was, when I'm around this person, I seem to just want to go smoke more. But when I asked him that question, I said, what are you going to do if this next family gathering is happening? Aren't you going to smoke again? And he's like, no, man. Like, if that's what's going on, if they're pressing and I'm just not enjoying the conversation, I'll just get up and leave. I'll just go over and talk to somebody that's more enjoyable to talk to. And it's like when a lot of people go through the sessions with me, they have a completely different resource state that they're then able to access. Before, the solution was, if I'm uncomfortable, I'll just get through that difficult conversation. I'll humor their political conversations that I don't want to be getting involved in. And then when I can sneak out and get away from that conversation, I'll go outside and smoke, and it'll help me de-stress from having to deal with that. That's what the old them would do. But this new version of themselves has a completely different outlook. Something that they never would have said before. And a lot of times they'll smile like, wow, I can't believe I just said that. I would just get up and leave. I would go to somebody else that was able to have a more enjoyable conversation with me. I don't have to deal with that. I'm like, look at you. What's gotten into you? Are you okay? Do you need to smoke some more? And it's really cool as a hypnotist to really get to see this shift happen within our session, so that when they're leaving, they're actually in a more relaxed state. It's no longer a question of, can I quit? It's, I'm done, I'm moving on. I have different things that I can do in my life now that are far better than just picking up the smoke and getting out of that situation that way. So really, withdrawal symptoms, if you look at most of them, they're basically emotionally based, or they have an emotional component to it. So what do I mean by that? So depression is a potent feeling, and usually it's this overwhelming feeling. It just doesn't let up, and it's like, my gosh, I can't even get out of bed. And after a session, you may experience some mild depression or none at all, because you're not experiencing any withdrawal symptoms, which is very common. But some of my clients still do have minor symptoms. But rather than just laying in bed, when everyone in the world's told them before, just get out of bed and do something, you'll feel better. They couldn't do that before. But after our session, and they get a new resource state on a subconscious level that they're now just instantly accessing without any have to motivate themselves, They just get out of bed. They're like, I don't feel really good, but man, I want to go out to breakfast this morning. Going out to breakfast might make me feel better. And so they get up out of bed and they go do something that makes them feel good. And then that has an effect on the way the rest of the day goes. And the same thing can be said for anxiety and insomnia. And I'll tell you, insomnia, for example, a little quick tip to help you fall asleep faster is to void your mind of any internal chatter and mental anguish that's going on. Try to wipe that slate clean in a sense and void it. And at the same time, pay attention to your face, pay attention to your body. Look for any place that has sources of tension in it. And you'll find plenty if you've ever tried to fall asleep previously and struggled. And that tension is usually you going like, man, I got to go to sleep. I got work in the morning. I didn't sleep at all last night. And if I don't sleep tonight, I'm just going to be, I'll probably go get a joint. I can't do this. I got to sleep. The medication I took, it's still not helping. Does that stuff work? Should I take a double dose? And it's a psychological, emotional thing. But when you leave my session and you just understand that this is over, you actually become more relaxed as an individual. Your whole system overall, from your brain to your body, will actually relax on a deeper level than you would have prior when you tried to just get off of it yourself prior to our session. And so if you're more relaxed, your face is going to relax, your body's going to relax, all the way down to your toes. There's not going to be a lot of tension in your system, and your brain is going to be able to just accept the fact that it's time to go to bed, and your body will just kind of naturally let go of things that you would have normally been stewing on prior. So that's where I can say when you have a session with me, one of the most difficult parts of quitting marijuana is actually reduced significantly just because you're coming from a different mindset. You're looking at things with a different perspective, and you're also coming from a place of sincere confidence. This is now over. It's just the beginning of the end. And so when you leave that session like that, falling asleep is easier. Anxiety is just a fleeting moment. It's not something that just consumes you and cripples you, and you just feel like you can't do anything. You have analysis, issues, or you just seem to freeze and you don't know what to do next. So that's the cool part, is when you get that shift going, the whole game changes. And when you're relaxed, it's actually a scientific fact that the more you can relax your body, the faster you'll fall asleep. So if you're already knowing that you've quit, you've left the session knowing this is what's happened, and I've tested you thoroughly. I've tried to give you every reason in the world that you should smoke, and your brain just cannot relate to it anymore. That's where you get that whole different experience when it comes to withdrawals, because you're no longer going through having to consciously remind yourself that I have to get through this, and I have to sleep because my willpower might get affected, and yada, yada, yada. But when you just know it's over, everything else changes. So if you're ready for that shift in your own life and your own mindset and your whole body, hit me up.